That's a good, yes, we are recording. Um, Welcome to the first official meeting of the Outreach and Network Guild. We are now recording, and the plan is to review our driver statement because it's been a while since we were all in the room together, and review sort of some of the things that came out of the charrette, and then do figure out where we want to go from there. So here's the driver statement. Um, I'll just go over what we came up with together, and then we can go, I guess we could go into circle and just do a round of thoughts, feelings, reactions. Does that sound good to everyone? Or should I do something more specific? Okay. So the Outreach and Network Guild access the tentacles and or mycelia that reach out from the Lifeboat Academy to find and develop new relationships, manage the connections with other lifeboats, other communities, and work on reconciliation with other communities. So responsive, tangible, concrete actions and responsibilities relate to outreach, managing relationships off of the campus, within the Lifeboat Network, and reconciling with communities, which I already mentioned. Long-term goals that came out of the sort of the 10-year plan for the project as a whole include guest days on the farm, which we haven't identified, a specific number yet, but thinking about hosting people on the farm, establishing a land back relationship, a reconciliatory relationship with the local Saanich people, and also having folks participate in activities that are led by First Nations folks. And then short-term goals are doing outreach, sort of the weekly chores of the guild. So the weekly email and then advertising offerings once they pick up a bit more, like navigation sessions, lifeboat circles, and webinars. And one of the new things that we just started advertising is onboarding opportunities, live onboarding sessions, as well as engaging in allyship training. I'm not sure what that looks like yet, but hopefully that's something that we can move towards identifying. And then here's the list of our dedicated resources that have to do with graphic design and our email list, social media accounts, and the various materials and presentations that we've created, as well as memes. So the graphics with quotes that Roland has been posting every day for quite a long time now. Anybody is welcome to work on creating those to be posted as well. And then we have some interdependencies with other guilds, which are listed here, thinking about the different ways that we work together with folks on the farm for use of the property for events, or Indigenous communities, having events or other kinds of things, as well as coordinating with finance and legal to hopefully recruit investors, social mortgage holders to purchase the property. And then we come to the 2024 action plan. And the key things that we came up with were establishing expectations with other guilds, which I think kind of goes for all the guilds. Establishing what is the unique thing that we're offering in terms of outreach and the Lifeboat Network, and how we really invite people in and provide support and have a really relational approach to everything that we do. One of the things mentioned was acting as a human library where people can access information and resources from real people instead of from, websites, as well as providing support, like a pressure release valve for people who are feeling overwhelmed by collapse and need somewhere that they can really vent and be heard. I already mentioned emphasizing relationality, the experiential and experimental nature of working together on different projects, and inviting people to engage more deeply with what we're doing, and hopefully that could include hosting different events like navigation sessions, for example. And we also talked about reviewing all of the tools we have currently available. And people can go, have a shallow understanding or go more in depth depending on what they're interested in. I already mentioned the ongoing chores for outreach, and then we have some badges that mostly have to do with social media. So you can contribute by helping post things to social media. You can make memes, as I mentioned. You can, as you get more advanced as an apprentice, you can help with putting out the weekly email, which is basically a newsletter, and then updating the CRM, which I think there are several of us who I looked at the CRM for the first time today in like 3 months. So I have some work to do there as well. Um, and then last but not least, these are considerations from the last time the guild met together, which I already went through the highlights, but thinking about staying relational in our offerings and what are our offerings. How can we expand the network by offering opportunities that benefit people to take on? So hosting sessions for us and for their own communities. What are the things that other people could be offering sort of in tandem with the Lifeboat network? And how do we differentiate ourselves? Again, like what is the unique special thing that we offer that people can take advantage of, or not take advantage of, but what people can receive? I feel like I've been talking for a very long time. So I would really love to move into circle and just hear where people are at after reviewing all of this. Do you have any comments or questions or feelings or thoughts? What's up for you right now? And we'll start with Ben.
There, unmuted. Um, a couple thoughts. Well, and actually, we have an Asana task as an agenda for this, and partly the considerations are in the driver statement because the guilds really hadn't met to decide how we wanted to be doing record keeping. A couple of the things that are coming up to me are around the badges. Well, I mean, I guess it's around the driver statement as a whole is everything is an experiment. And so the driver statement represents the best of where we are now. And obviously some of those things need to get refined as we move forward. And including the badges. And part of the thing with the badges is it's part of our skill sharing by being able to write down what is it that we actually do so that we can bring new people on board. So as we're moving forward, thinking through like, what are the tasks that we take on regularly and how do we write them down in a way that we can make it easy for someone else to come up to speed. And yeah, I guess I have onboarding on the mind right now. So that's kind of like what's front and center for me. I pass over to Roland.
Yeah, same for me. As we were going through the list, I was wondering about, you know, when can someone start, for example, because I'm really enjoying making the memes, so my heart is there, and so I will use that as an example. When is someone ready to, what are the steps needed to make a meme? What happens with the quotes? Like, how do we decide which quotes is representative of what? Uh, and uh, and what are the steps that somebody has to go through before they're ready? And that feels like it's all part of an onboarding process. Where does, and I was actually looking at the very beginning of the driver statement, and there's the little stars of interested. and that's for sort of like this initial, it feels like this is the initial uh, parsing out of how involved someone is going to be, but now that we've actually started, do we then transition into the helper, and I can't remember all of the names of the things, helper, peer, there's something before between peer and helper, and so do we get a better understanding of how involved people are, and either, yeah, through using that system, which is already in place. Yeah, so those are my observations. There's also some stuff that I think will become clear over time. It feels like there are some things that are on that long laundry list that could either be um, the outreach or could be hard work. And so I think it'll just over time we'll get a sense of how things work together or how things get parsed out differently, depending on what actually makes sense in practice. So over to Pamela. I think, is that right? Is it Pamela or is it, I forgot my order. What's the
Sandra?
Sandra? Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. Pam, you wanted to go first, but just adding to what Ben and Roland have already said, I kind of, that yes. And in terms of being someone who's not there on the farm and trying to stay connected and trying to, and having done what do you call that, a boot camp. So I have like some knowledge coming into this so that I can participate, yet I still find, all the little apps. And I went into Asana yesterday, for example, and didn't quite know how to use it and was checking things off. And I thought I was just liking them, but I was actually completing the tasks. And so I kind of messed it up a little bit, but Roland caught it right away, and hopefully that was all been fixed. But just about coming in and knowing, I use digital tools a lot. And so I'm wondering about the comfort level, and the wall that might create for some people. Like it kind of restricts who can participate. And so just being considerate of that. On the other hand, I'm also interested in like tools. You've talked a lot about in tools for Indigenous living, I think. I'm not sure what the name of that was, but that training. And if there's an ongoing training somewhere, is that an online thing? Is that local? Is that something we could organize to do with a group of people from the Lifeboat Academy, and then sort of so that we could kind of make connections to how those tools for Indigenous living could be applied, or maybe a basic level and then a second level where we're applying it. I'd be really interested in doing that kind of training to support this work, so that when we're doing our outreach, that we have that mindfulness of Indigenous culture and relationship to inform any outreach that we do. That would give me a level of comfort for this work. And I think because it is connected to the land so deeply, that's a really vital piece of the training. And in terms of networking, I'm also interested in the visual memes. Like I was like, social media, oh no, I'm not sure. It doesn't really excite me, but the memes excite me, possibly working with visual images and inspiring quotes. So I think that's all for this round. I'll pass it on to Pam.
Minor freak out here. I am so out of the loop. I am so sorry that I have missed the charrettes and the building up of these containers. I don't know Asana at all, and I haven't dived into it other than having signed on for it. And so I am so out of my depth here. It's embarrassing. I should have been better prepared. And I'm sorry I'm not. And that's indicative of many spaces that I feel I'm in my life right now. So I am afraid I don't have much to contribute, and probably it's best for me to do a lot of good listening and take it from there. So my apologies. I really am sorry I can't contribute something. There you go.
It's totally okay, Pamela. Yeah, you are absolved. One of the ways that we really want to be working is everybody's welcome. There are different ways people can contribute, and people are going to have interests and strengths and capacity, including time for various things. So, and I think this ties in with one of the agenda items we have is, what do new members need to know about for onboarding? And one of the things I'm thinking about is actually not just what are the tools that we use and how do we use them, but what has this guild been doing, on a more kind of abstract level up until this point. So one of the things, when we say we send out emails, what does that mean? Well, in the past, we've had multiple fairly like in-depth strategized email campaigns that had various goals, like recruiting timeshare croppers or getting the word out about being a lifeboat builder. So there's a lot of brainstorming that and discussion that goes into those strategies that doesn't even include using MailChimp or using Slack, so there's a lot of places where input is valuable, just about, what kinds of messages do you think people can hear more easily than other kinds of messages, or what specific words are people more familiar with? If we say social collapse, different audiences are going to hear that differently. So that's one of the things that this guild does, is really think about the words that we use and how we can communicate and reach people, and who are the kinds of people we want to be reaching. So even if you're coming to the guild and you don't have a lot of time, but you are connected with a lot of people doing similar work, which I know that everyone in this group is, that can be really valuable because you have some idea of the way that those groups are talking about things, and what kind of things they might be open to. So I just wanted to give that as an example of how we have worked in the past. And there's been other, social media campaigns, email campaigns, but there's also hosting the circles, and everyone in this room has been to multiple, if not many, navigation sessions. So, that could be something that you might consider taking on. That's not a huge time commitment because you're already coming to the sessions anyway. So yeah, just wanted to share a few examples. Yeah, and I think this is a good discussion, so I want to pass it back over to Ben.
Yeah, I agree. So ditto everything that Ronnie said. I was, one of the interesting things about Circle is learning the habit of waiting, of listening and waiting when you think. And I was like, Pamela, when you were talking, I was like, don't feel guilty. There's no reason to feel guilty. This wasn't a homework assignment. You're okay. I was like, nope, I'll wait. And then Ronnie said all the right things. So, but yeah, just to, ditto that's, we are trying to, we're trying to come together in a non-extractive way, we're trying to be relational and really embody how do we combine together our strengths in such a way that our weaknesses are irrelevant. And we all have different capacities, and we have different interests, and I think that part of the I feel like I'm getting a little bit distracted. I want to bring back to where we are, because part of the work Oh, actually, this, and I think in the onboarding, um, it's not just, I think the history is really important, and that's actually something that came up in the Finance and Legal Guild. Like, people need the history of what we've been working on, but I think there's also the ethic or the approach or whatever, like even to the onboarding, that um, we were trying to be really intentional about a slow drip approach to onboarding, recognizing that well, even Asana and Slack are not required. They're required. I mean, we can have a conversation around, for caretakers, probably if you want to be a caretaker, you probably need to know how to navigate around Asana, because that's what we use to sort of track commitments about who's agreed to do what. But even then, there's ways of using Asana from email where you don't even know that it's Asana. You just, send an email and respond to an email. And so we're trying to find ways of balancing, and it's always a balancing act, because we want to be responsive to different interests, different skill sets, different comfort level with technology, and also maintain some sort of coherent center so that we're all in the loop. We're all aware of what's going on. So I think for the I think, for me, it's what that's kind of, this conversation is making clear to me, is that how can we be really explicit about, we're here to help bring people up to speed on what we've done and what works for us. And that's our job. And well, that we have I don't want to say that's our job. It's collaborative, right? So we bear some responsibility in bringing people up to speed. And I guess everyone, and then the question is, what do you need to support becoming more engaged? And I think that actually for the Outreach Guild, because I don't have the driver statement in front of me, but in terms of our unique offering, I think our unique offering is, we are trying to figure out how to do mutually beneficial support. People are getting what they need, and the project as a whole is also moving forward. And so, and it's this, how do we talk a lot about balancing the energy flow, and the energy that's going to flow is going to be different from person to person, but on the whole, we need to be aware that, and again, no relationship is ever 50-50, but over time it starts to balance out as 50-50, that kind of way of thinking. Anyhow, I'm rambling. Over to Roland.
So a big thank you to both Sandra and Pamela. I think that what you shared is a clear indication that onboarding is a useful tool, and a reminder that there's always going to be someone who's going to be at a different level of understanding, who will be coming on all the time. Not all the time, but that's maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but there's always going to be, someone shifting from one guild to the other, or somebody completely new, or somebody who's left for a while and comes back and needs to come back up to speed. So I think that this is all really a great opportunity to think about, what does onboarding look like, and how can it best serve the guild and the people involved in the guild. So thanks. So over to Sandra.
Just going to echo about, at every meeting, acknowledging the multiple levels of participation, which, as you say, Roland, is ongoing. And I'm thinking of, leading, supporting, and witnessing. And so, if there was some way to just acknowledge, I'm here in a witnessing role today, or so that then you're kind of like, that sort of helps maybe reduce that expectation that they're going to have some big input. I don't know, just in terms of declaring your role at the beginning. I don't know if that would be helpful. in terms of the knowledge and skill to use the different tools. Can't remember who pointed it out. Oh, maybe Ben, about, yeah, if you're in the caretaker role, that you would use Asana. There's certain tools that you use depending on whether you're leading, supporting, or witnessing, and that you learn to do by doing. And I think, if we spend too much time on just learning the tools and talking about the process, that we can kind of like, I feel like it's dragging and a bit too slow. I want to feel like some progress, or that we've made some contributions. So, just saying, okay, here's the first project. And as we go, practice using all those tools. And one of the things which Ben already mentioned, talked about, the unique aspect is about mutually beneficial support and the balanced energy flow. I would take that a step further, and in line with the Indigenous tools for living, is to also look at mutual aid projects. Like, so depending, where you're at in your evolution of Lifeboat Academy, that right from the beginning, that you're thinking about what is a mutual aid project, or that we can participate in, to show that we're, not walking the walk, talking, whatever it is. And yeah, and I'm not sure about what is the mutual aid project, other than, offering navigation tools is sort of mutual aid. But I was thinking more in terms of looking at what are other projects out there who might be doing something similar, or someone who you can more directly support and have a more collaborative relationship. And maybe that's already happening, but I'd be interesting to identify that, or see if anyone else thinks that might be important to explore at this point, or if it's something for later down the road. So over to Pam.
Okay, I'm getting a flavor. One of the things that I'm kind of stuck on is, just how there seems to be a lot of activity happening at exactly this level. And there is unavoidable, everybody is sort of inventing their own wheel. And so it's interesting to be here and see what you guys have brought together. Just FYI, I opened up Asana, which I did subscribe to and get into, but it doesn't look anything like yours. So I'm not quite sure what it is, just in terms of, tools, and I don't want to get too distracted by that in particular. These things become familiar over time and use and experience. But yes, so specifically, yeah, you mentioned you put in earth regenerators there. Ronnie, I think you're taking notes. But also, like right now with the Regen Greater Victoria group, really grinding along, trying to find first steps with what are a couple of other places where governance is using tools and things. Oh yes, I was mentioning to Jan Inglis, whom you may or may not have met through Earth Regenerators, and I felt that it would really benefit her if she came to a navigation session, just to see how it is you frame a space like that, and how transferable that sort of social technology would be to the other kinds of spaces that she's anticipating. And it would just accelerate a sense of the possibilities so much, just to be able to come in and participate in something like that, because I don't think she's been to a navigation session. And that's just one of the spaces where you just have a lot of different, you lay out a lot of your tools in the beginning of that in a really articulate and helpful fashion. And the other thing, this is kind of doesn't really quite fit into maybe this space, but it was a note that I was writing to you, Ronnie, that I never sent, and that was to suggest or wonder about the curiosity of someone in the Lifeboat Academy, and I was thinking of you, Ronnie, but whomever, who may be interested in enrolling in the design school's Birthing a Bioregional Learning Center, just for the experience of finding out what the tools are that can be learned, gleaned from that space, because there will no doubt be some very interesting things that are presented there that don't require active involvement beyond attending the main webinar, which is where all the sort of juicy stuff is going to be. And then there will be the breakaway sessions that you may or may not attend. But I think it could be a place where some very interesting stuff is shared. So just mentioning that as a cross-fertilization piece. And other than that, I will sit back into my uncomfortable space and really interesting to hear what everyone is talking about, how you're talking about it. This stuff is just totally foreign to me. Never been in this place before, so it's interesting. A little daunting. Ronnie.
Oh, there we go. I couldn't find the button because I'm doing screen share and they're in weird spots. I really appreciate everyone's input. So I'm here, I'm trying to kind of loop it back to the neest question about seasonal priorities for the Guild. And I'm thinking about onboarding. It's definitely a priority, sort of the slow drip method that Ben was talking about. I just wanted to share that when I first came into the farm, and saw Asana, I was like, this is really complicated. I don't understand it. This is too much. I don't want to deal with it. And Ben was like, that's fine. And slowly over many weeks, I came to understand how it works. And now I love it and really appreciate it. And one of the people that I do admin work for, I have them using Asana to manage their business, and it works really well. So I just wanted to share that. It was definitely not easy for me in the beginning, and now I really like it. But yeah, I was thinking about onboarding as a seasonal priority. And I also just was thinking about in the next coordination circle meeting, connecting with the caretakers of each guild and really identifying what are their seasonal priorities, and as the outreach guild, what do we need to be doing to amplify those priorities. So just that's another thing to keep in mind, in terms of our interconnectedness. What are the sort of, is there a campaign that we want to launch soon that has to do with the fundraising or something to do with heart work, or the help desk, for example. So really trying to find those areas of, yeah, I guess mutual benefit within the network itself or within the academy itself. And that's all I'll share for now. Over to Ben.
I think I want to talk about the mutual aid projects identified, because this is nothing but a mutual aid project. And one of the ways in which we are trying to support, so that's the whole idea that we have about identifying lifeboat builders in different places. And so, partly it is, and in my mind, who I'm trying to help are not the usual suspects, not the people that have been building their own, social movement for 10 years or 20 years, but all of the growing number of people who are slowly becoming aware of the extent of the challenges that we face and are facing that combination of, oh shit, now what? And trying to provide, because we have been on, we've been actively working at this for, over 10 years, and even before that. And the methods that we are advocating are, the idea of treating everything as an experiment is at the core of what we do. And thinking of everything you do as a model is at the core of what we do. So encouraging other people to be thinking about, how do you take what's working and encode it and make it explicit and improve on it? And so how do you build, one of the things that's built into Sociocracy 3.0 is an agile way of working, which is a project management way of thinking about things, where it developed in the software industry. And that's where this idea of version 1.0 and 2.0 and 3.0 comes from. And so you always have the idea is that you get to a working model as quickly as possible. They call it the least viable product. What's the fastest way that you can get to actually trying something out there in the real world, because that's where you accelerate your learning. And so, which is interesting in Pamela, you talking about the design school and looking for tools. So part of the process that we use, I don't need other tools right now. I have the tools that I need. I have challenges. Well, that's generally speaking, I mostly have the tools that I need, except where I am facing a specific challenge to move forward on the project. And that's when I go looking for tools that make sense for that challenge. And I think one of the problems that a lot of us face is we're sort of in this deluge of a million possibilities. And you could do this, or you could try that, or you could go to this webinar, you could take that workshop. And personally, I'm trying to move us away from that. We already know what we need to know. We already have the resources that we need to work on what we need to work on. And we will naturally be led to what we need to know and that's navigating the tensions. Is really, it's more than tensions happen and you need to figure out how to manage them. We actually say, no, tensions are good, because tensions are drawing your attention where you need to look. And then you need to look skillfully, look under the surface for what there is to find. But anyhow, so in terms of, we are a mutual aids project. Like we're trying to set ourselves up to say, whatever you're working on, let's find a way of, and from my perspective, it's helping you get clear on what your project looks like and what the challenge is and what the next step looks like. And so we're trying to model that way of working. And, having an open door for people who, like Roland was saying, people are going to come and go, new ideas are going to come in with them. But the onboarding is about bringing people up to speed, because we don't need to redo. A lot of times people have come in and said, here's what you should try, not knowing we tried that, it didn't work for us. We know that. We already know that. And it's, and it's careful. I don't want to be I'm being kind of glib, because I'm not saying that there aren't lots of things for us to learn, but what I'm hoping to promote is a model where you learn as you need to address the challenges that you face. So aim, act, reflect, right? We are where we are. What's the next step look like? What's the next goal, the next milestone? And let's try something. And in the trying it, that's when, oh, what are the tools that would help us do this? And we will pull in those tools as necessary. So I'm sorry, I'm on a soapbox, but anyway, that's part of the whole way of working is a different way of saying we have what we need. We just need to treat it like an experiment, so we learn as we do, and let it be incremental. I'll shut up now. Over to you, Roland.
Okay, so I want to join in the fun of responding, and I'm also lost. I don't know what, I can't remember what we're doing. So I want to be able to respond. and I'm going to respond. So if you want to bring things back after I respond, that's perfectly fine. Because there's a whole bunch of stuff, and I think it's really rich. I think the what's coming forward for me is that uh, at the beginning of the guilds, the first thing that each guild is going to have to do is figure out how it operates. So that I think that's for me, that's what I need out of this guild before we start deciding on projects to take on. How are we working? And I think that this is actually a really great opportunity because we can also take this to the coordination circle where the guilds share how they're operating so that, and this is part of mutual aid as well, right? We share our knowledge, we share the things that the way that we do things so that each guild can then decide, oh, actually, that's really interesting. We weren't sure what to do with that, and now we've got an idea. Not that every guild has, and it's not so that each guild works the same way, but rather that we're sharing what we learn. And I find it really interesting the idea of reaching out for mutual aid. And I was thinking about it as in part it is it's reciprocal, we give and we receive. But it's also we already have that happening. If you look, there's Pamela who's involved with and I've forgotten it's is it Regen Victoria? Yeah. So
Greater Victoria, yeah.
Greater Victoria, yeah. So in a way, Pamela is already an ambassador for the Lifeboat Academy with them and opens up opportunities for mutual aid. There's Ronnie's work in Texas with their own sort of grief work business and the work that they're doing with the mobilizing around the war against Palestine. That's also, sharing things that they've learned here, and I'm assuming also the Lifeboat Academy as a name. And I'm, there's other people in other guilds who are also involved in other organizations, and it could be just sort of like teasing that out and letting people know that just with the involvement that people have in their lives, that they're already ambassadors for the Lifeboat Academy, and there's already cross-pollination that's happening, and that what would be nourishing for the Lifeboat Academy is to make that more explicit, maybe. So that's just sort of a suggestion. And right, and there was talk about having uh, um, workshops on sociocracy and sociocracy training and using Asana. And I think I can't remember, I'm not sure if it went out in the newsletter because I couldn't review the newsletter because my computer tacitly refuses to let me use MailChimp. So I couldn't actually see it, and I haven't seen the email. But if it didn't go out in this email, this newsletter, I'm assuming it'll come out in an upcoming one. And where are we now? So yes, where are we now, and what are we trying to do here today together? I'm lost. Can't remember. If somebody can help. Who can help?
I can help, or Ronnie can help. The two questions before us really are, what are the priorities for this guild moving forward? And I think Ronnie was already saying onboarding is one of those. And I think that's, and so, and that was one of the pre-existing question on the agenda for today is, what do new members need to feel like they're up to speed in the work of the guild? So all of what we're doing is in part, and we are recording this, and this also, for me, one of the action items that's come out is and I think this is true for, like Roland was saying, this I think applies to all the guilds, is can we develop a quick history of each of the guilds that just, bullet points or something. Here's where we started, here's where we are. Just so people can kind of come up to speed. Here's how we work. Because that's the other thing too, is how we work is already, we've spent a lot of time figuring out how we can work together as well as we can. Using the Maya Angelou, we do the best we can until we know better. And we're actively looking for ways that we can improve it. That's why onboarding is a two-way street as well, where as we bring people on board, we're also getting really valuable information about that doesn't make sense to me. I don't know that word. This is really hard. That's really easy. That's all, really useful feedback. And, so it's mutual benefit right there, just in the process. So anyhow, in terms of where we are, the two questions are, what are our priorities moving forward? And how do we bring people up to speed? And I think pretty much everything we've been talking about is on point. With that, Roland, do you want to say anything else, or do you want to pass on to Sandra?
Passing on to Sandra. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, it's sounding like the mutual aid is sort of a bit of a red herring or taking us off track a little bit, but I actually think that brings us back into onboarding. And I think it would be really helpful to identify how what Lifeboat Academy offers is mutual aid. I think articulating that more clearly, because I had people specifically give feedback and say, but they're not doing any mutual aid. And to be fair, I think they're thinking in terms of resource sharing, like more physical, tangible resources. And Pamela sort of used the word social technology. So I'm thinking of social and organizational tools, social and organizational technology. Certainly it's an opportunity for networking and cross-pollination, and there is those reciprocal relationships that are being developed, through the navigation sessions. But that's very much in-house, and it's creating, the academy. So when I think of mutual aid, I do think about collaborating on a project that's, sort of outside the organization. And I know it's really important to sort of, not spread yourself too thin and have, that integrity within the group to feel like, okay, we're solid and we have something to offer, and we're moving forward, and acknowledging our limitations and capacity and all that. But yeah, maybe more clearly identifying how what you offer is mutual aid, not just in the reciprocal relationships, but in terms of the social tools that you're developing that can be shared, or people are finding their own way to share them. But yeah. And is there anything else that's mutual aid, or for now that's it, and that's great. So thank you for spending so much energy to talk about that. I'm going to pass it on to Pam. Oh, before I do, Pam, I want to say I am actually, when I heard you mention birthing a bioregional learning center, I got very excited. As an educator, I'm very interested in developing community-based learning centers. And that's when I think of, mutual aid, because I'm an educator, that's the kind of mutual aid project I'd like to be more involved in. I'm not so much in the social technology tools because I'm a teacher and I do that every day, and I have my tools in that world. So I'm not necessarily looking for more tools. Like Ben says, I've got tools that are working for me, and certainly I benefit from the cross-pollination. But I am really interested in this idea about birthing a bioregional learning center. So maybe I'll connect with you outside of this, Pamela. And I am moving back to Victoria for May, so I'm hoping that we can connect and get together.
Where are you now?
Too. I'm on Salt Spring Island right now.
Right. Okay. Yes, definitely. Okay.
Farm sitting until the end of April.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on to you.
Yes, okay, that's the webinar series begins, I think, next week. So yeah, drop me a line and I'll pass on the information. I don't think I have much more to say right now, other than I'm finding it all pretty darn interesting, and I like that extension of the mutual aid in the direction of the tools that are used here, just generally, and um, I'm really hoping that Jan Inglis has time to drop in and experience a navigation session and get a taste of what it is. Man alive, you guys are doing such a terrific uh, it's so much very good work, and I'm thinking of it with the climate group that I'm here, in Oak Bay with, and the cool kid, like all of these different places that could really benefit, And I'm hoping that the co-op housing place, provides some kind of opening for an educational transfer of knowledge in that direction too. Really looking forward to catching up. All of that is tangential. Thank you, Ronnie.
Yeah, I have I have a few responses that I want to share. First is that the Lifeboat Academy at Spalding Valley Farm is a bioregional learning center. So for anyone who's not, I really want to make that connection that that's exactly what it is. It's a place for people. It's a
I'm
place
sorry
for people
interrupt.
to come learn how to work together on the land in tangible ways to be regenerative, to honor all our relations. That is 100% what the Lifeboat Academy is about. And then the Lifeboat Network, which is anchored by the Lifeboat Academy, is a mutual aid network. We're trying to create a relational, effective infrastructure through people in our network who are the nodes in the network, so that people can share resources and information and tools of every single kind. And the reason that we've made these guilds and we're doing onboarding is to bring people, hopefully bring people in to populate that network. We need ambassadors. We need people to form the nodes of the Lifeboat Network so that more and more communities can be connected and share mutual aid. So I want to emphasize, like, I want to get us away from looking at in the academy versus out of the academy. We're trying to identify the network that already exists, right? We're all connected. All of these different amazing regenerative communities and projects are connected and can be more strongly and explicitly connected. And that's what we're trying to flesh out through all of this work. So I just wanted to try and help illuminate some of that. And I know that it's also like, it's a lot to conceptualize. And for me, it's been definitely a steep learning curve, and really seeing how all of the pieces work together, and how we can serve the network and be served by the network. So yeah, that's kind of how I see our role. And especially in this guild, how do we facilitate all of that? How do we make sure people know about us so that they can contact us and say, I have a question about, how do I need to mill the wood on my property so that I can build structures. Who do I talk to? And they'll say, oh, we know so-and-so over in Victoria who has a mill. Really trying to enable people to connect to those resources they need easily, and also in a relational way. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. Over to Ben.
What's the non-binary way of saying sing it, sister?
Sing it, sibling.
Sing it, sibling. Because, yep. And I wrote that down because I think that's the kind of clarity and simplicity that is hard for me. And the Lifeboat Academy is a bioregional learning center already. We don't have to become one. We are becoming one. And it is a mutual aid network, and we need nodes in the network for the network to be able to operate. And, and I think that's the thing around lifeboats. You don't have to be a lifeboat builder. You don't have to self-identify as a lifeboat builder. And we were pretty clear about that every time we meet. A lifeboat builder is somebody who is trying to grow their resilience network in the place where they live right now. And that's, if you're trying to grow your resilience in your already existing networks in the place where you are, and you're trying to move towards regeneration, you're our people, and we want to figure out how are we the mycelia? How do we grow the mycelia between the nodes so that as requests come in, we can connect people with, because in terms of, I'm also very curious about perceptions. And I was at an event in Vancouver the other day where somebody was talking about the Lifeboat Academy, and they didn't know me. And I have no idea how they knew the Lifeboat Academy, but they were talking about them. Oh yeah, them. Aren't they based in, I think they're based on the islands, and I just think it's really interesting how, we can say one thing and then people hear whatever they're going to hear. And but yeah, and I do think that the resource that I am most excited to share is the collaborative resources. So social technology, not as a media kit, not as a social app, but actually the technology about how do you host productive conversations where people are sharing the best of what they know, where we aren't getting into turf wars, where we aren't getting into arguments about how many angels can dance on the head of the pin, and instead trying to figure out what's useful, take what's useful. And was that 5 or 3? 10. See, there we go. Already factions. The correct answer, 42. So anyhow, I'm just excited because I feel like, Ronnie, what you said, I wanted to say ditto, and I can't do that and just by saying ditto. Ron, over to you. Make me stop talking.
Again, I think this is a really fantastic conversation, and I think we're actually doing the work that we say needs to be done, because it's and I'm glad that we're recording this, because it's actually talking it through that helps to be able to refine the message, and it's not us refining it. It's, and I was noting there was somebody who was talking about what you're doing, what you're saying, and I was like, well, now we're in a guild together, so it's what we are doing and what we are saying, so we all have, we well, it's the blind ones and the elephant. We're all holding a different part of this thing, and we're all trying to communicate to ourselves and what we're understanding ourselves to others, what this thing is. And historically, this has been one of the challenges with this project, is that it is trying to connect a whole wackadoo of dots, and to be able to have something that's holistic. And we live in a world that likes to have compartments and specialization. So this is like, how can we recognize the different dots and weave things together so that we have something more complete. So all of the questions, all of the comments that we're coming up with, this is the work. And this is what's going to help us collectively to be able to do the outreach stuff, to be able to communicate to others, not just what the Lifeboat Academy is about, but how, in a way, we're already all engaged in a kind of lifeboat system. Over to, I don't know, maybe that's too abstract. If it is, forget it. Over to Sandra.
Yep. Ditto. I like that sing it sibling. That's what I felt after you spoke, Ronnie. It was like, yes, like that's that articulation and the way you talked about the network. That's the kind of, like you say, explicit container to create for people coming in. I think that so glad you're recording it. And about being regenerators, not just lifeboat builders, but a word that, maybe more accessible might be regenerators, because I definitely identify with that. Regenerative living, regenerative lifestyle, because I'm so transient. I don't feel like I have a situation where I can be a builder in one place. Yet I know I'm participating in that new, regenerative approach to living. And I also heard what you said, Roland, about being in a guild and being a we. And I just want to say that I intentionally mentioned people's name because for me, I often like repeat what's said and then I take it in and I forget to sometimes acknowledge the source and being an academic. So I'm in this mode of acknowledging my source and noticing how Indigenous people often say my auntie, my uncle, and it just sort of is meant to be like a way to show that I feel connected to you and this relationship that we're building together, and showing those little nodes and the cross fertilization, that awareness of that process taking place within myself. Yet I do, really appreciate that this is a dialogical learning that's happening right here, and a wonderful model of that. So just again, witnessing my own process and our shared mutual process, and grateful for being here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here too, Sandra. And when you talk about the Lifeboat Academy as a bioregional learning center, I quicken. It's it feels so it excites me, and I have a little alarm going on in, okay, how do we ensure that we're living in an ecosystem, a collaborative ecosystem, and whatever is happening with Regenerate Greater Victoria is inclusive. And like I'm wondering about, it's just a nascent, it's just a little seed. We're just blowing on embers here. So it's a good time for me to be able to take back into that space the work that's going on here, and how to and just be really mindful that that is going on here, and that whatever we're doing, like we gotta talk, we gotta, like, how does that happen? I'm not gonna try and build a whole city here just in a minute, but it's interesting how the Bioregional Learning Center model it's out of the moment right now. I personally am very I immediately responded to the Lifeboat Academy metaphor myself when I first heard about it, because of the invitation to embrace it really speaks to the seriousness of our situation, and the requirement to establish that as a place from which we build our relationships both to our understanding of what the problem is and how it is we can work together towards, I'm not going to say a solution, but to a living out through the relationship to it. And so how is it possible to maintain a diverse ecosystem? We'll find out. I'm not going to try and answer this stuff, but this is interesting. It's exciting in ways that make me go like this, and then also make me like oh like this. So, right.
So I just wanted to speak to the practical onboarding stuff. So in the email that went out today, there were two things we asked people to fill out. One is a scheduler for the next 2 weeks to see when people are available for onboarding sessions. And another is a poll of which onboarding sessions you might be interested in attending. So that has gone out. Check your email inboxes for it. And then once we have that data, we will be planning the onboarding for Slack, onboarding for Asana, and onboarding for Sociocracy, depending on when people indicate they're available. And all of those sessions will be recorded, so if you miss it, you can watch it later. And we also put out an invite for people to schedule time, office hours time, to ask questions about anything. So I just wanted to in terms of, yeah, go over the practical stuff as it relates to our agenda for today. And the other thing I just wanted to say about sort of the mutual aid piece and all of these different organizations that are doing very similar work is I want to move away from the idea that we have to work with certain people, or we have to find the areas of overlap. There's lots of areas of overlap. And I think for us, it's over time, we've talked a lot about sort of maintaining the focus of the Lifeboat Academy and the integrity of the project. And if there happens to be places where we're offering something that benefits something else and their participation benefits us, there's some sort of exchange there, then that's awesome. But I think we don't want to try and force things. I don't want to say this metaphor because it's kind of violent, but we don't want to beat something until it's harmed. But really just staying open and curious and seeing, I think I'm highlighting the importance of us being clear, as Sandra has been saying, as multiple people have been saying, about what it is we offer, how to get involved, and leaving it up to other people to email us and say, I'm interested. I don't want us to be emailing someone 3-4 times asking them for a meeting. It's too little, too late, like if someone wants to get involved, they need to contact us. We make our information available, or at least I hope that our information is available. That's part of our job, right? So I just wanted to say those bits. And I'm wondering if we want to look, keeping an eye on the time, if we want to do a last round of wrapping up the meeting. I have a list of action items here. Is there anything we want to add? Any last thoughts for the good of the cause? Over to Ben.
I want to keep talking. I do want to, I think that also part of what I think is required moving forward is we are inventing a new culture, and we know it's not going to be like what we came from, and it's not going to be like anything. We're not going back to some, sort of version in the past. And so we have to, one of Roland's expression is we hold everything very lightly, and including our own stories about what things are. And one of the reasons I'm glad, Pamela, that you were talking about the lifeboat metaphor resonating, because we were looking intentionally for something that was not, and I mean, language, there's no way to avoid this, but we were trying to avoid having people think they knew what we were talking about. And that's one of my problems with regeneration, regenerate anything. It has an appeal, but I'm sure when we start talking about what regeneration means, actually I've been in conversations where it's really clear that for some people, what they're talking about when they say regeneration is not what I have in mind. But because we're using the same word and we're both attracted to the same word, we think we're on the same page. So one of the things I like about the lifeboat idea is it's clearly a metaphor. We are not building lifeboats. It's something else. The closest we can kind of say is it's like a lifeboat. And it's the same, I believe we are building a bioregional learning center. I have been informed by other people that we are not, because we don't match their model of what a bioregional learning center is. And that was one of my concerns when it was being put forward, is I think we're doing that, but they don't. So I don't want to fight somebody who wants to have the copyright or the trademark of a bioregional learning center, who can come in and can credential me as yes, I am, or no, I'm not. But I think we are. I think we are. But I don't want to get into turf wars. So I want to figure out, it's really tricky figuring out how we communicate what we're doing without trying to trademark it, you know? Because what we're doing is, it's Roland said, we're feeling up the elephant. You know, there is this thing about regeneration, resilience, adapting to the situation we find ourselves in. We don't entirely know what it's going to look like, but we got a sense of kind of the shape of it. And I think, like Ronnie is saying too, I really want to emphasize that we don't want to be all things to all people. I know what we're doing. And if what we're doing can help some other people, or if what they're doing can help us, let's work together on that. But I'm not trying to do what other people are doing. I don't want to do what other people are doing. I got my own project. And I respect that other people have their own projects. I don't want to shape your project. If I can lend a hand, if I can lend experience or whatever, I'm more than happy to help. But I want your project to stay your project, and I want my project to stay my project. And we can still figure out how that all fits together. We need diversity. We don't need somebody to, mass produce the one right way of doing it. We've had that. That's what got us here. So anyhow, and if I agree with Roland too, that I feel like this has been hugely productive for me. It's helping the comments and the questions and the offerings are all helping to have things slot in, things are slotting together in my head in ways that they just wouldn't have if I didn't have this conversation with y'all. So thank you. And the system is doing its work. Over to you, Roland.
So I think for myself, I want to paraphrase one of the things that you just said, Ben, that we're, and that's the idea behind the describing it as a network of lifeboats. We are one node with strengths that woven in with other projects that have their focus and their strength, that together we're stronger. So we don't have to be, each bioregional center doesn't need to be exactly the same. And it's actually, that's the diversity, the strength of diversity, that with connection and with diversity, we become stronger, just like in nature, because we are nature. I also wanted to say, just to make sure that what I was trying to express before was clear, Sandra, when you were talking about that you named people specifically, I wasn't responding to naming people specifically because I feel I do the same thing. What I was responding to, and that I'm very sensitive to, is this idea of us and them. That's what you're doing. This is what you come up with. And I was challenging that idea bring it more into feeling like it's a we, that we are now involved. And that brings me to and that made me think about what have we put out in terms, so the people who have been involved in developing things to where they are now, and now you're involved in developing what's coming from that. We've tried to distill that information for the website. So I was wondering if that could be some homework for the people who are part of this guild to look at the website and study it and to see what information is missing. Because we've done the best that we could with where we were at. And I feel like there's stuff that's come out during this. So it's not necessarily to add new things for the project to do, but it's to look at the information that's there, ask questions about if there is any questions around anything to help to clarify if possible, and to see if there's anything from what we've been talking about that's missing from the narrative that we're presenting on the website. And I think the website isn't everything, but because it's a place where we've distilled a lot of the information that we've been talking about for the last 10 years, it feels like it's a good place to start, or a good place to focus on, to be able to have that sort of relatively quick and easy to understand description of what the heck the Lifeboat Academy and the Lifeboat Network is all about. So yeah, I'm putting that out there as something that could be useful for us to do. Over to Sandra.
I'm still a little bit in responding mode, but I'm going to try and wrap it up. But yeah, very deep conversation happening here. Responding to a couple things. Ben, in terms of, about wanting to do something different, and you're in the process of building a culture. And I just want to say, when I heard Bioregional Learning Center, I was thinking, why did I respond more to that? When I sort of know what's happening here in terms of it's more of a network. It's not a center as in one place, because you want to emphasize that there's multiple nodes. So, but I did like the idea of bioregional to indicate sort of some sort of container. You maybe can reach globally, but that seems like a little too far. But the bioregionalism, I don't know, just having some descriptors that you can agree on within the network. And then I also, as an alternative to learning, because I've been thinking about these words that we use over and over and sort of lose their sense of meaning. What I hear among youth being used, like my daughter, and when they talk about mutual aid, they talk about knowledge sharing rather than teaching and learning, where there's that split. So that knowledge sharing. So I was thinking bioregional knowledge sharing network, but have something, under the Lifeboat Academy to sort of articulate like some sort of container and for a purpose. Those are just my ideas, but I am also aware of like this, what Ronnie said, inside outside, and what Roland talks about in terms of us and them. I guess because I am a bit transient in my life, just acknowledging that what's going on for me personally is affecting how I'm able to participate and how I see what's happening. Is I'm kind of looking for a home, I'm looking for a center, and I'm not feeling very grounded. And so I am looking for that center and where I can make my home. And I have to say that, maybe I still don't quite feel like this is my home, and that I'm like in the core of this yet. And my actions show that I am, but I still feel torn within myself. So I just wanted to acknowledge that's sort of coming out. And at what point do we say, oh, I belong here? I don't know. I guess that'll be different for everyone, but I guess I'm still exploring that. So this conversation has been really helpful for me personally and as part of this group. Yeah. Thanks for listening. I've really enjoyed listening to each of you and hearing perspectives that really help me to understand myself better too. So thank you.
Well put, yeah. I love that, coming to greater clarity within myself through these conversations, and more aware of what is muddled. So yeah, thinking of that Tyson Yunkaporta quote, you've got to move with the land or the land will move you. Well, that's when you need a boat. And that boat carries life. And so I'm just extending the metaphor a little there. Yeah, it's really helpful to hear different perspectives on this almost cluttered ecosystem of organizations and loose groups of people and all of this various stuff, and just sort of like just bring down the temperature, just let it chill. And I do find myself feeling that I'm going to be bringing the Lifeboat Academy in with me to the Birthing the Bioregional Learning Center. And for what it's worth, if there's anything that I hear there that is that seems at all useful, then that'll be fine. But I appreciate how each domain isn't quite the right word, but this is a big garden patch, and there's lots of good food in lots of different places. Some has thorns buried amongst the rows of carrots and so on, but walk gently. And I find myself feeling very similar to you, Sandra, for different reasons, as far as how am I here? I still feel incomplete in the sense that I feel myself to be much more of a taker than a giver. And that's just and I'm not sure where and how or if I can ever move from the one to the other. So that's just making note of that internal dynamic or tension. But within all of that, just a tremendous gratitude, because I feel that at the very least,
We can't hear you, Pam. Your voice stopped.
no, I cry. And when I cry, I can't talk. No, it's not
Oh,
it's
I
not a
can't
big
see
deal.
you.
That's okay. Anyway, so the extent to which I can receive all of the abundance that I have got here, I know that makes it richer for me when I go other places. And so there is a circulation of this value. And it would just be good to be able to bring more of it back here. But anyway, here we go. Ronnie.
Thanks everyone for sharing. And I think I'm just naming sort of a paradox of how it's really important to be able to name a flow of energy, to name, a balanced exchange. And also sometimes we can't name exactly what we're giving and receiving, but it's still happening. And just by you, Pam, and Sandra, and everyone participating, you are giving to us, because none of this works without people. None of this means anything without people in the room to try it on. and ask questions and struggle, you know, all of us. So I wanted to name that. Um and this is, and we're also doing some onboarding right now, I feel like, right? So the history of the project, and one of the things that the people who've been carrying this project for the majority of the time, one of the things we've really struggled with is how does the farm relate to the Lifeboat network? And what is that? What is really going on? So the farm, the Lifeboat Academy on the farm, that specific area of land, that is a bioregional learning center. That is a place that is meant to be in deep relationship with the bioregion, the local indigenous folks, with regenerative methods and plants that are specific to the bioregion as an anchor for the greater Lifeboat network. Because one of the principles that we're trying to really embody is that we center the land in everything that we do, because the land is the reason that all of this exists. So the Lifeboat network is more online, and it's between people, and it's, you know, it's virtual, it's relationship based. And yet at the center of it, what makes it even possible is the land. So that's really the bioregional piece. So it's really both and. What the Lifeboat Academy is about is the both andness of the place-based, the in-person, being on the land. And okay, how do we connect that to the larger world? How do we connect that to being part of what is now a global society? Um, and it's what been, yeah, we care for the land to heal people, and we heal the people to care for the land. So we're trying to really emphasize the both and the reciprocity and the relationality between what's going on the farm, in this place where people can physically come to learn, and then what they're able to take back to their communities as part of the network. So, and again, this is something that it's taken us a long time to be able to understand and conceptualize and really see the connections. And I'm really grateful for the chance to get to practice my articulation of it. So anyway, all of that to say, we're doing it. This is the work. This is what it's all about, is sharing and understanding and not understanding, and confusion and feedback and AMAC reflect and all of the things. So in terms of next steps, I will send out an email after this meeting. I get with like an overview of what we talked about, and then really highlighting the action steps that we've identified. Yeah, I really love the idea about getting feedback about the website. That would be really helpful, and just the messaging that we have out there. Yeah, is there anything else that anyone wants to add, Ben? Is there anything?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. One is process, and what we've agreed to is that the whatever we discuss here today is a proposal using sociocracy, because we know and recognize that not everyone could be at this meeting just at this time, but that's part of the reason why we record it. People can catch up to speed. And likewise in the email, anybody who's expressed an interest in the guild, because we seek consent, which means we seek out objections. So we put the email out there as an opportunity for people to give any voice to potential objections or concerns. If we don't hear from people, we assume that that's consent. So just in terms of, process. And the other thing I want, Ronnie, I think I love that you're practicing the articulation, and you're very articulate about this stuff. It's great to hear how concise it is. And I think it's also, the map is not the territory, but maps are useful. And the DAO that can be named is not the true DAO. And so a lot of what we're talking about, for me, the culture shift is moving away from this notion that we could somehow describe it all perfectly. We could come up with the right answer. We could figure out what is regeneration. Instead of moving back towards a more relational, verb-oriented way of being, and knowing that we know what we know now. We have some ideas about where to go. And ultimately, it's always in flux. And that's actually one of my concerns with bioregional, is I think that invites abstract concepts of this bioregion. I can't comprehend a bioregion. I can only comprehend this farm and this island and beyond the island, like, so, and what we're doing is completely embedded in the bioregion. It is part of the bioregion, but it's also only a part of the bioregion. But where does the line end? Like that's, I think that the messiness of everything that we're doing is actually the project. We're never going to get this right. We're gonna get some things right and some things wrong. And the best we can do is be really nimble and responsive when we figure out. And I guess that's the other thing too, to kind of put front and center, is a lot of this is about reconciliation and undoing harm and making sure that we aren't doing further harm. And so that comes with a lot of humility and, being fine to be small and not have all of the answers, and, say, this is our part. This is one piece. This is what I can offer. I'm sorry. I'm super excited. Take my verbal diarrhea as just a sense of excitement about this conversation. So apologies. And anybody else have anything else they want to add? Back over to you, Ronnie.
This was so good and cool and awesome. And it's great to be in the space with all of you and explore all of this, because this is really, I was in another space the other day and it came up about, and really interrogating the words that we use and the way that we say things and not making assumptions, and creating space where we get to do that and we get to agree on what we mean, at least right now for the moment, right? And I feel like we've really done that. So I'm really grateful. So yeah, thank you for being here, everyone. And like I said, I'll send out an email. As Ben said, it's all proposal. Feedback is always welcome. And our next coordination circle will be this coming Monday. So we will bring these, the key points that we talked about, to the coordination circle. And then the next outreach meeting will be 2 weeks from today, at the same time. So keep an eye out and add it to your calendar if you'd like to be there. Yeah, thank you all very much. Take care.
See you all
Thanks.
later.
Bye, everyone. Nice